Throughout the long history of football, glory and heartbreak have always gone hand in hand. These long waits for silverware have tested the patience of generations of supporters, and in many ways, the stories of Droughts are as compelling as the stories triumph. They shape a club's identity, fuel rivalries, and build a bond between fans and their teams that goes beyond victories. At the very top of this list stands Notts County, one of the oldest football clubs in the world, founded in 1862. Their last major trophy dates back to the FA Cup of 1894. That means more than 130 years without lifting a major piece of silverware. For generations of supporters, the glory of that day exists only in the pages of history books. Fans lived entire lifetimes waiting for another triumph that never came, keeping alive the hope that their club might someday return to the summit. Close behind, Sheffield United endured a century of longing. Their last major honor came in 1925, a time so distant that the sport itself looked entirely different. Year after year, the Blades fought, often coming close, yet the ultimate reward continued to escape them. For many, being a Sheffield United fan was less about expecting trophies and more about carrying the pride of tradition through thick and thin, hoping one day to witness what their great-grandparents once celebrated. Huddersfield Town suffered a similar fate. Once a powerhouse in the early days of English football, their last league championship came in 1926. As the decades rolled on, other clubs rose, fell, and rose again, while Huddersfield remained trapped in a drought that stretched nearly a century. To young supporters, their club's glory days were little more than distant legends, stories passed down from older generations. Cardiff City, proud flag bearers of Welsh football, lifted the FA Cup in 1927. Since then, almost 100 years passed without another major trophy. Their near misses became a painful pattern, and the memory of that day in 1927 became a mythical point in their history, a reminder of what was possible, but seemingly always just out of reach. Preston North End, one of the original giants of the game, last celebrated an FA Cup win in 1938. Once among the most feared names in English football, Preston's drought stretched across more than 85 years. The golden era faded into the background, and while the club remained part of the conversation, the lack of silverware grew heavier with each passing decade. Charlton Athletic, Blackpool, and Bolton Wanderers also carried droughts stretching back more than 70 years, clubs that once touched the heights, but have since struggled to recapture that winning feeling. Each season brings renewed hope, and each elimination brings a reminder of just how long the wait has been. Among modern giants, the stories of droughts are less about centuries and more about decades, but they remain etched in the hearts of millions. Tottenham Hotspur, one of the most followed clubs in England, spent nearly 60 years without a major European trophy. Their passionate fan base endured generation after generation of frustration, watching rivals lift league titles and Champions League trophies while they waited in vain. When the drought finally ended with a Europa League triumph in 2025, it felt like an eruption of relief more than celebration.
Shot's cross has got real purpose, and Brennan Johnson has got it in! Spurs have liftoff in for this! Tottenham Hotspur!
Newcastle United, one of England's proudest clubs, carried the weight of a 66-year drought. Their last major trophy before 2025 was the FA Cup of 1955. Decades of near misses, heartbreaking defeats, and a stadium filled with some of the most loyal fans in the world only magnified the agony. The wait finally ended with their League Cup victory in 2025, a night that turned St. James Park into a cathedral of joy, a moment generations had been waiting for.
Levantamento, olha o Gol! O livramento, joga a bola pro Murphy, Isaac! No comando, segurou na batida, tentativa, gol! Não valeu. Ergue a taça, Bruno Guimarães.
Crystal Palace lived perhaps the most astonishing drought of all. Founded in 1905, the club had never won a major domestic trophy until 2025. For more than a century, their supporters kept the faith, carrying banners and voices filled with hope that one day they would see their team crowned champions. When Palace finally won the FA Cup, defeating one of the giants of English football, it wasn't just a victory, it was the fulfillment of a dream passed down through entire families. The tears in the stands told the story better than words ever could.
Here's Munoz, who was very involved then. Oh, it's exactly the same. Eze arrives on the scene, the same as the semi-final. Cup winners 2025.
Liverpool, a global powerhouse, carried one of the most famous droughts in modern football. Between their last league title in 1990 and their triumph in 2020, the Reds went 30 years without winning the top division in England. For a club with such a decorated history, the absence of a league trophy was a constant reminder of how quickly dominance can fade. When they finally lifted the Premier League under Jurgen Klopp, it wasn't just a celebration, it was a release of 3 decades of hope, heartbreak, and longing.
Champions again! Liverpool! Soak all in, lads. Soak all in.
Other major clubs carried their own burdens. Everton, a proud Merseyside rival, have not lifted the FA Cup since 1995. West Ham endured 40-plus years without a major trophy until their European Conference League win in 2023. Arsenal endured years without silverware before ending their drought with an FA Cup in 2014. And while Chelsea and Manchester United have remained competitive, even they experienced shorter droughts that tested their fan base's patience. These stories remind us that football is not just about winning, it is about persistence, loyalty, and the bond between a club and its people. The decades without trophies forge resilience, shaping the identity of entire fan bases. For the clubs that finally break through, the joy is magnified by the pain of the wait. When Tottenham finally lifted a European trophy, when Newcastle finally ended their 6-decade drought, when Crystal Palace finally won their first FA Cup, the celebrations were not just about one victory. They were about lifetimes of waiting, about fathers and mothers who passed away, never seeing the dream fulfilled, about children raised on hope who finally witnessed the miracle with their own eyes. And for those whose droughts continue, like Preston or Sheffield, the hope remains. Each new season is a chance to rewrite the story, to prove that no drought lasts forever. That is the beauty of football. Glory can vanish for generations, but with one magical night, with one unforgettable goal, everything can change. The history of football's greatest droughts is a reminder that the game is not defined only by its champions, but also by the long, painful roads walked by those who continue to believe. Because in football, as in life, hope never dies. And sometimes, when the drought finally breaks, the celebrations are sweeter than words can describe.